Greetings, Darklings, from across the interweb. It is once again I, Sid Duchess, Precious Ken, here for the Sounds and Shadows podcast. I'm very excited, and I've got a wonderful guest. We always have the best guests. This is going to be super fun. Somebody I've talked to quite a bit, and it's been really exciting, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I'm also excited to shout out, we haven't had live on video in the last few, Katy, who's recovering and feeling better. Miss Katy, how are you?
It is I, Katy. I am well. Thank you. How are you?
Let's do the bit. Yeah. Before we get rolled into the guest and doing it, we just did a Bandcamp Friday, which is great. So you can see that on soundsandshadows.com and hear all the things that I got and I was listening to, but one of which that came in late and didn't make it on my list that I wanted to shout out is our dear friend LB from Scary Black, one of the most underrated members of the goth community and scene that really everybody just needs to know about, and it literally hurts my heart. It makes me more goth every day thinking about the fact that more people aren't buying Scary Black. So check out that new single. It is dope. And let's see, what do I got for a t-shirt today? I got
well, wait, hold on. Wait a minute, Ken.
This is awkward.
Is that the name of the band that we're interviewing today? Isn't that a bit of a faux pas?
It's true. We are interviewing Male Tears, but I grabbed this t-shirt. I love it. It matches my makeup. And you know what? I don't care. I'll wear the t-shirt of the band that I'm going to see. So without further ado, James Edwards of Male Tears. Hello.
Hey. Hi. I'm James. I am a really nice person. And I'm also the, singer and basically the whole mad scientist behind a band called Male Tears, along with a keyboardist and a live member and writing partner, Frank Shark, who is not here right now because, basically, to put it simply, I didn't tell him. But I just felt like it would be just kind of like, for some context, the reason for that is because I was like, I don't really want to bug him anymore because we just spent like the entire week together. Like we went to Vegas to open for Pixel Grip, and then right the next day getting back to California, we went to DOS Bunker to see them again, as well as like Spike Hellis and Blacklight Odyssey, and that was a whole thing. But I'm just like, I need to give him a break.
You guys were like doing like a Pixel Grip in a van following the Dead kind of situation, just hitting a bunch of shows there. That's fun. How was going to Vegas and seeing it?
It was amazing. It's probably like the most fun I've had like all year, and they're such great people and they put on such a great show, and it was great seeing them like twice in a week, but also just like Vegas, like like we partied a little like way off, like a little too hard. At one point we were just like me and like my crew with me, including my boyfriend and then Frank's girlfriend, who have been on in videos and stuff. They were just like chatting in a casino, like surrounded by like some elderly people, and I realized like what time is it, and it's like 4 a.m. and I'm like, oh, I need to go to sleep or something, like this is like way too long.
But you're still young, James. There'll be plenty of time to sleep when you're my age. Trust me, you get a lot of naps in. Enjoy it.
They don't have clocks in casinos.
I didn't see one, but they definitely had like that tinted window thing going on, where it's like you're not really aware what time of day it is if you're not looking at your phone constantly.
And I was gonna say, let's not pretend like we're in Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin days. Like everybody in the universe has a clock in their hand 24/7, so that excuse doesn't fly as well as it used to.
That's true. It's not like I'd be able to look at like a hand clock and know what it's even saying, really. It's like pointing at
the hands even mean when they're
really, like, I mean, I grew up in an age where like everything was told digitally, so like from the beginning I'm like, okay, numbers, there we go, I don't need to look at that thing on the wall, that's an antique.
I honestly think like my generation might be the last ones that grew up a significant part of their life like looking at the hands of a clock. Like I think that really is gone from this world at this point.
I'm sure you were like going to school at a time where that was like your one way of knowing how long was left, right?
Yeah, the clock was up on the school wall in front of us, and we all just stared at it, like watching each second hand tick, hoping that class would be over. Yes, that was a reality. All right, let's bring Train back around and tell me about your musical history a little bit and how this became Male Tears, which, by the way, I also am going to ask you about because I love that name, and I got to hear more about that. So tell me about how you became Male Tears.
Uh, well, I mean, like I think like it's always kind of been in the periphery of my life, just like a uh music that was like the danciest stuff from like the 80s, and just like my dad was a DJ, so he was really into like like electronic music culture and
Very
just
cool.
like whatever was new. So like I think I got like exposed to like different types of dance music like all the time, and like rock music was something I had to seek out. But like I really was just kind of, it was always there, like, and I wanted to do music pretty much like once I was in high school and like realized, like this is basically my calling. But I didn't really get that much direction on like what I was going to do until uh and I owe like a lot of like influence and stuff to the band Trust, or TRST.
Yeah.
Because like when that first record came out in like 2012, the self-titled one, I was like pretty much only paying attention to like 80s music, after rejecting like the whole like screamo pop punk thing that was happening in high school. And like I just like discovered, Trust's album like in college, and that was like a huge kind of like, this is like kind of like what is like I was like kind of looking for, like basically
Sure.
like forever, something that was like very accessible dance floor music, but was also like extremely like grimy and like guttural and like not very friendly to like normies, like it was like something like I just remember like there was a few years where I was just listening to it like every day, like I would hear it every day.
That's
um
awesome.
yeah, so like I guess like since 2012ish, like the last decade, I've been just like producing music like and performing stuff, but just like under various different aliases, very locally, and like not really like doing a whole lot really. Like it was just like kind of like local band fodder stuff.
Yeah,
And
but local for you is out in California still, right? And I mean, is there much of a scene out there? I mean, I would think too, comparatively as someone in Kalamazoo, Michigan, that pretty much your local scene is as big as a lot of our national scenes in a lot of ways.
I guess well, see, the thing is that like I have been kind of just like my music just kind of had been going through phases. So
Mhm.
like there was a time where like some people would kind of like associate me more with like like the indie like bedroom pop stuff. Some would have associated me with like vaporwave kind of and like chill wave. And there was a point where like people were kind of putting me into like the synthwave category as well. Just like there was like I don't know, just people didn't know what to make of like what do we do with this,
See,
and
that's always the best way. I mean, when you've achieved
yeah.
that as a band where you're in between 43 waves, that I mean that's when you're hitting on.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think like the big thing that kind of because like I've always like really, really uh if you had to ask me like what is the definition of like cool, I would say it's like in a twisted way, I think like just goth, music, and like music that expresses that, and just also like visually. I've always thought that like new romantic stuff and like
Yeah.
goth stuff, there was kind of like this in between point, like, and I think what I mentally always like think that was like the touching point, at least like for me, was like that song that the singer of like Sex Gang Children and Mark
Mhm.
Allman did together, like
Oh
that.
yeah.
Yeah, like I was like, okay, there's something going on here, that like I'm really, really digging and like looking for it some more. Like I found it in stuff like the Dance Society and the Frozen Autumn, so those were like a lot of the bands that I was starting to like channel lately.
Yeah.
And like
I
just
went through a
very.
big Frozen Autumn phase.
Oh
Very
yeah, love them because it's like kind of like I think that's like perfect too. Like their formula is like concentrating like a lot of the things that I like brooding kind of detached sort of like vocal delivery, but like with like these really like cold retro electronic beats. Like I'm like I love everything that's like that. And very quickly though, like just putting out like a single in 2020, like at the end of 2020, that was like the first time that I started going by male tiers. And like really quickly, um, I was contacted by this promoter group and like a DJ, like kind of like club night. And at that point, because it was 2020, right? Like
yeah.
2020 when pandemic hit is basically why like I started going by like male tiers in a very serious kind of way. And I was like, like pretty much everything I'm not allowed to like play anymore. Like I have to kind of buckle down and like make this like something that I put all my energy into, because otherwise life would have just been a cycle of like work, being an essential worker, BTW, and then going home and like doing really nothing except like diddling around on software again. But like now I was like, okay, now is the time to really concentrate my efforts. And when I put out that first single, I was contacted by Luna Negra, and they were doing their Twitch stream events at that point. And that's kind of like the point where I started like meeting a lot of other bands from like across the world, but also like ones locally to me. I started becoming like friends with people, and very quickly, like I just started like going out and like going clubbing and stuff, and they play such like fantastic music. I'm like, I didn't even realize, because when I was in high school, I thought like, like goth stuff was basically like aggro tech, and like the cyber stuff was going on. And I was that 15 to like 17-year-old on vampirefreaks.net. And I was just kind of like, damn, like one day I'm going to be able to afford all of this PVC stuff. And like, I'm going to get a cool goggle mask and everything. Because, to me, in my mind, like I always associate like, trad goth stuff with like the 80s and sometimes the 90s stuff. And that just wasn't like really happening in clubs. So like when recently in the last decade, I'm like, oh, now this is like perfect, that there's like a bit of everything everywhere.
Yeah, fine. That's one of the things to me that I really loved about the modern resurgence in the scene is, I don't know, some people get kind of precious about their traditional goth scene and I mean, I think I'm pretty well known for being one of those that I just love the fact that there is so much under that umbrella right now that people can, whether you're talking about musically or a look or anything else, there's so many things to pull from that to me still fit. And to me, that just makes it more fun, especially when you're talking about going to a club and wanting to do a look and turn heads and all that stuff. I don't know, we kind of limited ourselves on options back when I did it in the 90s, when I was young and going out to club. If you didn't fit within this circle, you kind of looked out of place and outside the look that was trying to be achieved there. But nowadays, God, that could mean so many things. And to me, that's more fun.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, also the advent of the internet means that like no one really feels, or I mean, people just young people, because like that's every new generation that comes. I'm like, they're basically like gonna set the tone in like another 10 years or something. So
Right.
I think it's like I think we start to become a little bit more stuck in our ways when we don't accept like little changes, and that's going to happen inevitably. But the internet made it to where people don't have to like dedicate so hard to just like one specific thing, which is
Right.
just a thing of the time. Because I imagine in the past, because I wasn't there, I was like in diapers when like in 1994 I was like obsessed with like watching my dad play Sega. So like I didn't
Hurting
know
my
anything,
feelings. That was like I was about to graduate high school, but thanks. Okay.
Oh, sorry, but I mean, like, I missed the wave entirely because of age, basically. But like, I like delving into people's history because I'm like, what was it like? What were the '80s like, dude? And but yeah, I mean, I think that people just like they like mixing things, and like
Yeah.
it's fine, Like I think nothing is going to destroy anything, like the sanctity of God. But like also I love the people that are kind of like stringent on that, like the ones that
See,
are
I
like
think you
very.
purposely troll them sometimes. I feel like when I read through your feed that you're trying to get like hardcore traditional goths to like burst their bubble, and I feel like it's on purpose and it makes me laugh.
I think like maybe a little bit, yeah, but at the same time, it's not like coming from a place of like antagonism. Like
Yeah,
I just want to make you just mad. Period. I just think that like nothing is really that serious, you know. And
nothing
but
is
God
sacred.
bless them, you know, for like being
Yeah,
that way. Like I love the fact that they like this is like what they want to be, like the thing that you know, like this is like
it's not the
serious.
Sisters of Mercy, then fuck you.
And I mean, like, we have plenty of those bands around right now. You know, there are lots of like vampire
Yeah.
rock bands. You know, like
I like
Vampirian if
many
you
of
want
them. I
them.
mean, I really do enjoy that, but I do want to shift gears again here because
Mm.
and talk about what I love about male tears. Like when I
Oh,
found you, and are you ready for that? Are you prepared?
sure. Yeah. Okay, we can do this part. Sure.
To me, when I first heard you, I think that's what really hit my heart about it. Is I hear a lot of bands that are kind of using a nostalgic or a retro feel. But a lot of times they're people my age or even older that are kind of just throwing back to a retro feel. And so it does kind of have this sense sometimes of it sounds a lot like it did back then with maybe better production or something like that. But I think when I first heard Male Tears, what just sparked me and I went, this is fresh, is that it does sound like someone listening to those things from the 80s that truly loves and appreciates them, but it isn't retro to them. It's hearing it the first time through the ears of someone who grew up in the 2000s and has always known this level of technology for recording, has always known all these different branched in goth styles blending into it. And I think that's what makes it so fresh for me, is that it has a youthful exuberance to a retro concept. I know that
Yeah.
was a lot to unpack. Sorry.
Well, oh yeah, yeah. So there's a lot to unpack here, but I mean, I totally see why you would think that. I see why a lot of people take it that way. The way that I guess the psychology of it is that like my reasoning for it is that like I don't. Some people think that what I'm doing is like there are a lot of people that out there that like have expressed like kind of confusion as like is this satire, like is this supposed to be like ironic,
Yeah,
and
I
they
don't
you
think
know
it
the
is.
name doesn't help, you know, a lot of people think like everything about it plus the name is ironic, uh but it's actually like there are much more honest genuine intentions going on here. Like to me, I don't really think of things as like retro and like nostalgic, because nostalgia for me would have been like, I guess like, I don't know, the 2000s, you know, like
Right.
I remember, yeah, like does everyone remember like the 2000s stuff, you know, because like that's nostalgic for me, but like I don't really love it where I need to like rep it, you know, like, you know,
In
I
some
think it was
ways,
lame.
I remember it, but I'm not nostalgic about it because that was kind of the era that I just blacked out and tried to forget, that, and then came back again at the end, like 2019 or something. Like
Yeah.
2005 through 2019, that's where I kind of just checked out.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I just feel like, uh, I wasn't really that focused on it yet, but uh right now, like the way that I think of it is just like retro music or just music from like the past. Like it's just the lines have been just so blurred, you know, lately that like
Yeah.
like there's if you think about it, we're kind of like in 1992 right now, because I think like we're in due for that cycle happening again. But if you think about it, like in the early 90s, like there was still kind of like a lot of like 80s runoff, you know, like
Yeah.
like things culturally were kind of still the 80s, and then like things happened like breakthroughs where everything became the 90s, like culturally. So I think right now, because of all the retro futurism stuff that's been happening in the last decade, right now it's kind of like 1992 again, you know, and the 80s just happened. And soon there'll be a shift again, and what we think is like retro is just no longer retro, because everyone on TikTok is like discovering Depeche Mode for the first time. And now I see all these like young Zoomer memes about 80s bands, you know, and like I think that's also like a like when is it gonna uh when are we going to hit a point where like these things stop becoming relevant? And the answer is that they don't. You know, they just don't. They don't ever stop being relevant. The internet makes it to like where there is no old and like new.
There's
So
only immortal now. Yeah.
yeah, everything is basically immortal with the internet. And I think that you know, when I'm kind of like throwing back to the 80s, it's not really throwing back, it's just like pure love, and like I just want to make stuff like that, you know.
I think that's exactly what I was trying to say is I don't hear, when I hear your music, here is someone who went out with the intent of like capturing synthwave 80s in a bot. No, like I really, and I don't think it was even satirical when I heard you. That's what I loved, is it sounds like you just stumbled into the same place as these people did and loved it for the same reasons they did, and then started singing what was in your heart, and it just happened to coincide with what Robert Smith did in 1979, you know. But I get that feeling that it really wasn't that you just sat up listening to The Cure forever and went, I think I could probably deconstruct and reconstruct this. Like, I don't get that impression from your music at all. It really has its own fresh feel.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot, because it is like my whole life, you know. Like I think that basically what I'm doing right now is just like living out what I think is like the definition of like cool. And you know, like it's all about really just like looking cool, sounding cool, because like I think all of my favorite bands are like from an era where that was the modus operandi in
Yeah.
like, you know, that era. Because like there was just a lot of stuff that I think is like still so relevant, and it just keeps coming back, that like I'm just like, it's not, I don't think of things as like outdated or like, you know, passe. Like they're just, it's just a thing. And I think that it's like amazing looking. For example, like when I go out, I always see people that look awesome, but it's not like they all decided that we're going to just like come looking trad or anything like that. Some people look very like kind of new goth, you know, where it's like very bondagey, like
Pastel goth, the
yeah, or like there's like a couple cybers, you know, and they're like in their 40s, but I'm like, God bless them. God bless them for coming out and doing like that like tectonic thing. Like I think that's awesome. I unironically love that video of like the cyber goths like dancing underneath like the
I've always
tunnel.
thought it was
Like
cool.
I've always thought it was cool. Yeah, like everyone looks awesome.
What would
What
you
was the
consider
question?
like okay, when you're like living your day to day or maybe at a show or something, have you had a moment where it was almost satirically goth where you're like, this is the most goth thing I've ever done?
Yeah, I'm like very hyper self-aware and like to a detrimental point, and I'm also like I don't take myself super serious either. Like I don't command like, you know, like to be taken seriously. So there are times where I'm just like, I'm going to do just something right now spontaneously on stage when I'm performing. I'm going to just kind of like pretend that I'm in like the Virgin Prunes or something. And I'm just going to like start like writhing around and like throwing like mug faces at people. And then sometimes I'm like, you know what? Like we're at like a party right now, but everyone like that's the vibe. It's like dark. It's dark, the dark 80s, you know, like there's some kind of like club event. I think I'm just gonna play along and just like kind of against the wall, you know, and just like look dead at everyone that comes by,
Vampire
you
the
know.
You're going to go invisible. Vampire the Masquerade. I don't know if you ever used to play that like RPG game, but that was one of the big things from the game is there were different hand signs that you would, and this meant you were using your power of obfuscate to become invisible.
Wow. I didn't know that. I just kind of thought it was like something that people do when they
Yeah.
don't they do that, or is it this when they're like lying in their grave?
I
Or
suppose, yeah, you cross your hands here, but like you did, like this, that was the game thing, or there were other like, if you were using like a mental discipline or thing, so that the other people not playing the games, because you'd play this in public, like at a club or a coffee house or something, and you'd have a little lapel pin on or something to signify you were in the game. And the whole key was you couldn't let humans know that the game was being played. So that's why you used all these hand signals to like do different things. Yeah.
wow.
Now you've learned a part of goth culture right there, 90s goth culture. That was
Wow. Yeah. I mean,
Vampire
that's
the Masquerade. Yeah.
sounds very 90s from like the screenshots, because I hear people talk about this and then I look for it and I'm like, oh yeah, my computer would have died trying to play this in like 90 something, you know?
Yeah. All right. Another thing going along with when you were kind of talking the aesthetic here that I wanted to ask you about, though, is I was first drawn in again to your music videos. And I think that goes along with what you were just saying, that I hope you take this with, again, I'm unironically fell in love with this, that it reminded me of, there was a movie in the 80s called Mannequin. And it was, it was Kim Cattrall was the mannequin who was like on Sex and the City and stuff like that now, but she was a big like starlet in the 80s. So she did this movie where she was like a Egyptian queen that was like transformed, her spirit somehow got into a mannequin that could come to life. And it was a very, very silly movie, but the aesthetic wise that you had in some of your first videos kind of had this goths doing cool stuff, hanging out together with the four of you, just looked like it's having fun, but kind of the graininess of the video had that vibe that, I don't know, for whatever reason reminded me of Mannequin. And what was, I don't know, the importance to you and what you were trying to capture in your videos and get across, when and how it matches up to your music?
I think that the videos are basically kind of just like, I think I'm also kind of trying to do what they were kind of doing in the early MTV era, where things were sometimes very literal, but other times they were just completely like metaphorical and like disconnected from like the point of a song. And I think, to me, like, I think of visuals in terms of like, what is the song trying to like get out of, I guess, like your imagination. And to me, a lot of the times, like, in a lot of my music, I think that I'm just trying to like tap into this kind of like naivety, this kind of like very, I guess, like the psychology is that like this is just, I'm just trying to project like what I've always thought was just aesthetically like fitting to music. And I've worked with a lot of people in the past to do videos. I used to, there's a former member of the band that would basically like film and direct everything up to a point. And then it was always like such a headache too, because like he was like, but what is going on in this right now? Like, what is supposed to be happening? And like, to me, I always like look to someone like David Lynch, for like inspiration, as in like to what to say to people.
Yeah.
And so mine is just like, it doesn't need to make sense. It just needs to make emotional sense to this point, like I want to just have it kind of like make some kind of like the point
Impact.
of everything. Yeah. Like there's some kind of like impact, some emotional impact that I'm trying to get across in a song. And, for example, like the one that just came out, Model Citizen, is like, that was a concept that I put together with the director AJ Strout. And what we came up with was basically like the song and the video was trying to communicate that kind of like, I was trying to get across that there are people that come out to alternative events that are just there to really be seen, and that it's okay, because internally we all kind of do that in a bit of a way. Like the lyrics and what I'm saying is that like I'm taking people's I'm kind of like stealing some kind of essence from someone, and I'm just going to like apply it to myself. Like for example, like in the song I'm saying like, you know, I'm posing like a magazine and there's mannequins around and all the black lipstick people are dancing, you know, and everyone is kind of helpless to this kind of cycle of just reinterpreting one another. But that it's kind of fine because ultimately I don't think that there's any kind of rules to enjoyment and like getting something out of like fun. Like I think that like people that come and they just want to look fabulous and stuff and it's not really about like anything deep for them, I think that's valid too, you know. Like I think like they look amazing and I think that's all I really like. I when I went to Das Bunker like a couple days ago, what I got really out of it was just the fact that I felt like I felt like I was in a goddamn Chuck E. Cheese for like goths, you know. And it was like amazing because like my brain was just so stimulated. Like no matter, it's a huge place in LA and at the venue Catch One. And there's like it was like a fun house everywhere you would go. It looks like an exit, but that's not an exit, that's a stairwell to go to a different floor where there's other kinds of like aggro tech or like noise. And then they had a room where they were playing retro stuff kind of. And like I was just you know like, wow, look at the people, look at the lights, and like that was great. And I'm kind of trying to express those experiences that I have like in the scene into the music in a non-critical or judgmental way, you know. I'm just saying like what I'm seeing, and I think like it's just like, you know, I'm just about like having a fabulous time, you know.
I love that. It comes across. There's a lot for me to unpack there. One of which was I really love at the beginning of that you broke the fourth wall because you're talking David Lynch, and then you're like you like the whole time you've kind of profiled when you're talking to me, and all of a sudden you look directly at the camera and you went, "Reality kids, what's happening out there?" And that slayed me. It was beautiful. But I agree with you that I feel like I don't know, especially in modern times, but this has always been true. Part of what you're, I don't know, not selling, but with your music, with your art, with any of it, is you, is your image, is saying to everybody out there, everybody should see this and think, this is cool, this is fun, this is what I would want to be doing. And I think to me, like, especially when you talk with somebody, you know, matching videos and the sound you produce, that's something you're so effective at. I watch your videos and every single one, I'm like, I want to hang out with these people. Like, I want to like go chill underneath a overpass and like hang out with them, you know. And I think that's part of the glory of what you've really captured both sonically and visually.
Yeah, I call us in a very fun kind of like non derogatory way. I call ourselves like new wave video sluts, and I call ourselves like party ghouls because I think like I
Like
think it's just kind of fun. Like I think like dark things. I think like morbid shit. I think, you know, goth in itself, the most concentrated, self-serious 90s kind of like, you know, white as a corpse kind of people, like the whole, I think that is just so fun to me, you know. Like I think like it's like, yes, I want to go. I wish I could find a club with like the snootiest people and then just kind of like blend in and just kind of like pretend to be one for a bit, you know. Like it's just I think just you know, like it's I would love to hang out under a overpass, you know, like get out like my Amazon lights and like make it like kind of like a party. Like that sounds great to
that
me.
sounds
Like
like fun.
yeah, it is, you know. Like I think a lot of things are just kind of meant to be taken a bit cheekily, you know. So like when people like respond and they say negative things to me, I'll kind of say something a bit negative back, but like it's kind of like not really, I mean, like they weren't really insulting me like the everyday thing. They were just
Right.
like insulting like basically like just some like kind of project thing. So like sometimes like people say like you look like Robert Smith, you know, on PCP, and like I respond, I'm just like, I look like Robert Smith on Crystal. What are you talking about? And like you know, but I'm not actually like getting
Yeah,
defensive
you
because
gotta
like
you gotta keep it light and send it back at
yeah,
'em, you
yeah,
know?
like you gotta like kind of, I think it's kind of like an in joke. Like the way that I see like a lot of what I do is sort of kind of like a bit of like an in joke with like it, but it's so esoteric that like you'd have to kind of know my sense of humor and then like know what I'm into, you know. And some people like really get it, you know, which
Yeah.
is like fabulous.
I have to say, like, I don't know, as somebody who's, I guess, been in it longer than you have, and there's a lot of people that have been in it longer than me, I think that's always been a lot of it. At least for me, like I am a very, very silly goth. Like I am a lot like I seem on camera or what. I am a happy-go-lucky person 90% of the time. I go through dark stuff just like everybody, and the music I write with Amaranth sometimes reflects that. But then again, it also sometimes reflects ninja and ass play. You know, like I mean, it is this like, because I think part of goth has to be that. Like if you can't laugh at yourself a little bit, and there are bands that I've known that no, they're dead serious. They're that serious about, oh,
God
but
bless them.
that isn't most of it. Like honestly, I think 80% of the big goth industrial people I've ever talked to are pretty light spirited folks who just like the macabre vibe and aesthetic. And if you're wearing a puffy shirt and like, you know, dude, and you can't laugh at yourself a little bit, like I think you missed the boat. Like it is funny a little bit. It can't be that serious that you're tending your kennel of ravens, you know? I mean, it can a little, but not entirely.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think that you know, the OG like Batcave, like that clique had it. They had it going on really, because like it was really kind of just like a silly sort of like laugh at yourself sort of thing, you know, like when you see like all of the when you see like the members of Specimen there, you know, they look like they're having a fucking good time, you know. It's not,
Yeah.
it looks like a blast, like they're not trying to project like, you know, stale and detached, you know. But not to like, you know, not saying that that's better or worse than like other
No,
ones, like the
no.
self-serious people. I love them too, you know, like
And
I
people
think
are
they're great.
complicated. Nobody's just either funny goth or either serious debate. Everybody is both. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the human experience, you know? I used to always laugh when people would say, you know, what do you listen to when you're down or depressing? And I would, you know, to cheer you up. And I would say, I listen to the Swans. Like if I'm really down, because if I put on and hear about goddamn the sun, the sinking lead weights of failure, I can't help but stop whatever it is I'm going through and say to myself, whatever it is not that. Like that is a level that I am not prepared to get to in terms of my depression. And so, you know, I feel better. I think maybe I'll go outside. I should see the sun today. Yeah, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it should be like a means to an end, you know. I
So
feel like it's not good to like just wallow. Like I think like you got to, you know, like grow from like every little
yeah,
thing that you go through. And I don't, I mean, like, you know, everyone's kind of like feelings are totally valid, you know. So, you know, have that moment, but like you have to eventually like pull yourself out, you know, because like you can listen to pornography one day and then the next day it has to be head on the door, you know.
I think the Cure are a perfect example of that, of really running the gamut of expression and emotion that can take place within the goth concept.
Oh
So
yeah.
going along with that though, you just put out the new EP that you brought up. You had the single in the video the other day, but
Hmm.
of trauma, blah, 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 uh, trauma club, and which I've really enjoyed. I've heard some, and I had a review done of. Tell me a little bit about how this was different from your previous recordings.
uh I think what really changed things was that I started going more like I guess like dark alternative events.
Mhm.
And in those places, I guess just like a lot of people, I felt like I became friends with like a lot of different types of people in those environments really quickly. And so it was kind of like a big sort of like a love letter, you know, to like the people that I met there. And like a song called Belladonna is like very directly inspired by a friend of mine named Kat, and she's in the new video as well.
Very
And I
cool.
thought she was like fabulous, but also like she was like a deep, complicated person. So, you know, like I felt like, the way that she, like told me things in confidence, like I felt like it was easy to put like kind of like dark sentiments into like dance music, because those are like the environments that like I met her in, is like at clubs, so
Yeah.
like to me, there's kind of like a marriage of like people and their issues, and like the kind of like things, because like no place is perfect, and I've met like people that have been like abused by like people that they also met in the scene,
Sure.
and just like kind of like the way that like everyone there, like no one's perfect, no matter how fabulous they look,
Yeah.
and like what their job is, or even if they're like a DJ, like no one is safe from suffering. But I think that like we meet up here in these like party environments, and that's really what I was just trying to get across with like all the music, was that like a lot of like dark shit could be happening, like outside on the smoking patio, but like inside there are people still like kind of like having a blast and like shutting out their issues, and it's all kind of melding together in like this kind of like in this way where there's like a lot of like mundane bleakness with like flashing lights and fog machines. So like
I love that. Like, I mean, you explained, I mean, like I said, hearing it and going through it, enjoying the songs to themselves, but hearing the overarching concept there makes so much sense that, yeah, like there is something in the whatever goth scene that's about the glitz and glamour and, looking up and not showing any cracks in your armor. But the whole reason we're all meeting together in this club is this kind of shared trauma on different levels, and everybody there has those cracks and everybody there knows it, but instead we've all just decided to get together and dance and and look at each other and be in this moment. And that's gorgeous, dude. I love that. That's fucking beautiful.
oh you, thank you. But I think like it is just a moment in time, and from that point on, like I think like I've bled it out now, and like I've been performing those songs like like last year and this year as well. And like what I kind of like want to start achieving though is like a much more concentrated kind of version of that. But like I feel like personally, like what I've been listening to as well has been like really influencing and changing things as well, because meeting like a lot of like new bands, like it seems almost like 2020 kind of just like birthed a wave of like new artists, like suddenly
There
like the
is.
turn of the decade came, and like I feel like a lot of people started putting out singles and like projects, or if they existed before that, like it almost kind of launched like a wave of like new material from them.
There is a
And
goth renaissance happening. That is
oh,
a
I
legit
I
thing
call it
happening.
that too. I think I just call it like a cultural, like artistic renaissance, because I feel like it's not just within goth, but it's happening like in other scenes as well, where like people are just kind of like mutating and like sharing DNA and like kind of like melding into one another. And I think like it's fabulous. But like in terms of like the dark scene, I think that like what's happening is that there's just like so many different bands that are kind of like coming in, like expressing a lot of like the same kind of like emotions in their music, but like in so many different kind of like production styles. And like I like the wave of like kind of like Boy Harsher inspired like cold electro stuff with like
Yeah.
feminine vocals, like very like cold detached dance music. And also like the wave of like post-punk bands where it's like a duo and then there's like a drum machine, but they're like otherwise it's like two people like playing guitar. Like I like that formula that like Twin Tribes kind of like,
Yeah.
or like She Passed Away even prior to that were
Sure.
kind of like birthed like a new wave of those. I think it's fabulous how there's so many like just like like-minded spirits, like where I didn't really feel that before. Like before I was Meltears, I felt very much like an outsider, and like no one really
Yeah.
kind of understood or like got like what I was doing. But like as of lately, it feels like there's a lot of like very like-minded individuals that I'm like, whoa, like like we have to be besties at this point, because like you are doing exactly what I would be doing if like I was just a different person. But like basically it's the same thing. Like there's so many like synth dark duos, Like there's a Hallows,
Yeah,
there's
I
like
love them.
yeah, them, especially them. And there's also like a Sun Ultra Sun from Belgium. They're great. They're
Yep.
amazing. I really love,
Full
not to
transmission.
yeah, oh yeah, not to name drop like a ton of people suddenly,
I
but
was just going to ask you to name drop some people, so you just jumped into this question before I got to it. So yeah,
oh,
hit me
okay.
with a couple more. Go ahead.
Okay, there's also a let's see, Tuxedo Gleam is
I
awesome.
don't know
They're
that
from
one.
California. Yeah, Tuxedo, it's like very like cold minimal wave, like very analog. It's great stuff. There's also this dark wave post-punk band also from California called Ill Humans. They've got like this very like guttural kind of like dark sound. It's very like Suspiria, kind of like the band Suspiria. And
Wait, the band Suspiria or the goblins in the movie Suspiria?
were there, oh, the band
The
Goblin
the
that made
band the Goblins did the soundtrack of the movie Suspiria.
yeah, right, but there was also like a 90s band that was
Band
like
called
goth
right.
called
There's both. That's
Suspiria.
why I was trying to
Yeah.
clarify.
Oh, I'm sorry. I probably was like a sonic speeding through that one. But what I meant to say was yeah, oh, and then Scary Black, of course. Like he's amazing.
Such a talented visual artist too. He is actually doing the cover for the upcoming Amaranth album.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah, very cool. He's great at that. If you next time you need a single cover, reach out to Elby. He's amazing.
All right. Actually, I wasn't aware that he was also a designer like
Yeah.
that, but I'll check that out too.
Yeah.
Because I love just working with new people every time. Like I never like to go through like the same graphic artists or like directors. Like I just want to go through like a new person every time because you
It
find
is one of the best parts about the scene. That's what I love about Sunshine. And I'll give you one last shout out on here because you wrote a review for us for Sounds and Shadows
oh
for
yeah.
Crook's Lies. So you might as well give a shout out to Crook's Lies as well.
Shout out to Crew Lies. I'll see you guys on the 17th. Like they're yeah, I love that band because I think that it's giving morning goth, it's giving like you just like had a bender and like it's time to wake up and you want to listen to something dark but not like extremely overbearing. Like
Yeah.
it is very moody, like it's only 2 p.m. but it's very gloomy out.
You can't afford to take yourself down another peg at this point. You need a little hope at the end of the tunnel, but something still smooth. And I really love that album, and in particular the fact that it keeps, I don't know, growing in sound and doing something different. It seems like a lot of bands get simpler as they go, kind of, whereas Crew Lies to me has gotten more and more progressive and complex with everything they've released, and that's one of the things I found really interesting about them.
I do think that like there's a lot of commonalities with Goodbye Divine, which is the name of the new album, and also their very first one. I think that like it's almost kind of like a sun and moon sort of thing. Like especially like it's probably has something to do with like the cover art as well in my mind, because like one is blue and one is very like red dominant. So like in my mind I feel like I'm someone who still listens to albums like in their entirety, so I feel like it's really easy to kind of like side one and then side B with those both albums.
Very cool. Katy, did you have any final questions for James before we choose a male tier song to spin out to?
Okay, I'll give you a choice between two questions. Question number 1 that you may answer is, do you have any pets? If so, what are their names? Question number 2 is, do you have any pre-show rituals, like things that you have to do, like so that you're in the right mindset to rock out when you get on stage?
Yeah, I have I'll respond to both. So I do have a cat. I have a cat named Ziggy, and I think he is a little bastard and he's a spoiled brat, and my boyfriend lets him get away with literally everything a cat could do wrong. But at the same time, like the problem is that he's just so cute and like fluffy, that like it's like hard. Like sometimes like he does the thing where he's like I really love that you're petting my head, but I've decided to attack your arm, you know, like, and I just have to like, okay, all right, let's take it out on me. You can like pull out your aggression, and then like he'll let go. And you know, like he's just an adorable one. Very tsundere. And also like pre-rituals. Well, I think getting ready is it in itself is a ritual, like kind of like putting on the persona. I mean, putting on myself, doing what I always do every day is like put on makeup and like wear like the blackest clothes possible. I think at that point I kind of like, you know, I'm looking in the mirror, I'm applying the white, I'm doing the eyes, I'm putting on like, you know, my accessories and chains. And in that time when I'm doing that, I'm just like, showtime. And like, I'm like ready to go, you know, at that point. And especially last time that when, you know, we just performed in Vegas, when I did that, I just was channeling Showgirls, that movie. And I just really wanted to like
feature film.
Yeah, I love that movie so much, and it gave us looks after looks after looks, and those ladies were fabulous. And so I just put on like the thick like glitter on my eyelids, and I was just like, you know what, like now I'm ready, I'm a showgirl. And I have to kind of do that as a ritual. Like I'll down a couple White Claws, and then I'll put on my makeup, and I'm just like, you are a star, baby, like come on, go on there and impress.
I want to see now for one of your videos where you have like the gold sequence skull clap with what I call the like peacock fan coming out of it.
Yeah.
You know, I think that could be a good look for a video for you.
Do you think you could get Bob Mackie on your costume design? I think so.
Maybe I should attempt it. I'll send out an email. I'll do a
just
press
like a
release.
Facebook message, or maybe on Instagram would be easier. I don't know. It seems like Instagram is the easiest way to reach these people now.
Is that how to reach people these days?
Yeah.
I would say yes.
Wonderful. Well, James, my friend, it has been wonderful talking to you. It is our tradition here that we will spin out to one of your songs. Now, you have the new video out, so we could do Model Citizen, or is there something else off the new EP that you feel epitomizes the idea of male tears or this Trauma Club EP that you'd like to spin out to?
Oh, you know what? Let's get in the car and spin out to let's do Belladonna.
Oh yeah, because you brought that. I love that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then for those of you out in interweb land, this has been the Sounds and Shadows podcast, and you will be enjoying Male Tears, Belladonna. Thanks for coming on, James, and everybody out there, keep it fucking dark, yeah.
The church and steeple suffered harm from these people. I heard it from her point of view. She wishes that I never knew. I cried for her and watched her dress as I confess. I wish her too. She wipes away the tears again, and every night she feels the same. Inside